Welcome to Primetime, everybody, and welcome back to our 61 Days of Primetime. I'm your host, Aaron Chambliss. I'm joined by my co-host, Chad and Carrie. How's it going, guys?
It's going great. Yeah, and it's a little different now because Carrie and I are on the same screen. We've done that before on the channel, but just not on this series. We generally do the separate screens. But we still have our own, and that reminds me. I have to apologize for any baby noises in the background. I don't know how loud that was. It's pretty loud for us, but hopefully it's not that loud for you guys. But yeah, even though we're on the same screen, we still have our different opinions and we have our different rankings of what we're doing today. But Hunter, I'll go ahead and explain what the series is. Basically, we decided a little bit back when that over the months of September and October, we were going to do the 61 Days of Primetime. And how we decided to do that, we're like, let's watch 61 movies over that span of time, but let's make it interesting. Let's try to have some movies that we've seen, but a lot that we haven't, just so that we can, expand our horizons and stuff like that. So what we've been doing and we're going to continue to do is to go throughout the decades. We started in the 1930s and we're going all the way to the 2020s. Well, yeah, as you can kind of see, we now have a baby in the mix.
He's saying hi to everybody.
Yeah, he wants to say hi to the world, hi to the Primetime watchers, and
give everyone kisses.
Basically, we've all collected we've all collected 6 movies per decade. Is that funny? I think Hunter's is really funny. We've collected 6 movies per decade, and we're gonna we've done the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s already. So now we're into the 1980s. Very excited for this one. I think this one is better than the last one we did. Okay, so Hunter agrees. That's pretty cool. So now I'm excited to get into this. But at the end, as soon as we're done with our 2020s, on Halloween day, or Halloween night, I should say, we're going to do a live stream where we discuss, I think, one of the greatest horror movies ever made, Halloween from 1978. But as a bonus, I guess it would be the 62nd one. We're going to do a Hocus Pocus discussion as well. And then we'll probably go ahead and reveal if we have like an overall ranking of the entire slate of 61 or 62 movies, and reveal what our overall ranking is. So that should be fun. But without further ado, I think I explained everything, right?
Yep.
That's pretty much what we're doing. So let's get into the first movie and we can discuss The Changeling.
Yeah. Am I starting with this one? So this is a first time watch for me. As you guys know, I'm not really a huge fan of supernatural ghost stories, but this one I thought did it really well. George C. Scott is amazing in this movie. I think some of the scares, like the bouncing ball down the stairs, I think was really used really well. It is a slow burn horror movie, which I do prefer sometimes. Sometimes I do like it when a movie picks up the pace, but this movie, its pacing is it's slow and methodical, but it works for me. I love how in this movie, when something tragic happens to George C. Scott's character at the beginning of the movie, some movies would have him be like this mega, asshole the entire movie, and then by the end, he's kind of found humanity. But I like how in this one, when the tragedy happens, he doesn't let that affect him going forward. He still seems like somebody who's trying to help, someone who's trying to do the best he can. He doesn't feel like someone who's closed off to the world, which I appreciate. But I actually really enjoyed this movie for a first time watch.
Carrie?
Yeah. This was, I think, a second time watch for both me and Chad. I think at least for me. I really enjoy this one as well. It is difficult to watch parts of it, just because, and like a thing that didn't used to affect me as much as it does now, like violence against children.
Yeah.
And some of the scenes, I mean, are just really kind of graphic and brutal. Especially for the type of like kind of like the rest of the movie is kind of deceivingly so slow burn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of the great points, Hunter. I think I would add the seance scene is really cool.
Yes.
And then the scene afterwards where George C. Scott is like listening to the tape and hears the voice.
Joseph and things like that, his name. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the ending is like just so like everything pays off and builds up. And it's a great mystery as well. So great little like fantastic classic haunted house movie.
Yeah, I actually really like this one. We actually Carrie and I watched this separately, but we watched it via the Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs.
I have to watch that one with it.
It's always fun to like watch his stuff because it's very funny when he talks about it. He gets sidetracked a lot and just goes on like tangents but you know, when he's not doing that, it's still funny when he does that. But when he's not doing that, a lot of the times he has like so much behind the scenes information, not just like on like the movie itself, but on like the filmmakers and actors and stuff like that. So if you really want to fully engage with like that stuff, you know, I think it aids in your understanding of the movie and how it got made and stuff like that. And might improve or sometimes, you know, deprove, lesson,
take away
from your enjoyment of it. I don't know. But normally it improves, I feel like, and you understand the movie more. But I will say I really like this one quite a bit. I think it's one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. And it's because like I feel like they do the haunted house like reveals and stuff really well. Like Hunter was talking about like the slow burn nature of it and how like he'll just be is he trying to get on the oven? Born to be bad. But we have no, he's a good boy. But like you have George C. Scott like playing the piano, and you'll have like behind him the door will start slowly opening, and then I'm like, oh, someone else is in the house. No one's there.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, there's just this like so creepy, and like when they like reveal like they do the seance, which is creepy in itself, and then after he's listening to the voice recorder, and like he just turns it up all the way and just hears the my bed. My necklace, my medal. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like
the flashback to the pool or to the bath drowning was rough.
Yeah, it's like equal parts horrifying and scary and then sad. And I think that's what this movie does like really, really well is it hits on the drama very, very well. And I think like George C. Scott's performance does that, adds to that. And I hate the idea that his entire family dies in the first scene. It's a very like Don't Look Now style of setting up like the sadness of this guy and like, everything that he's lost. But then I like how he's like the perfect guy to have like this connection of going to this house and like wanting to, like he goes to the house not to help this little boy that he finds out that's there, but he goes to escape and to kind of wallow in his sadness and just record music and just like be by himself and just not around anyone. And then he sees like the sadness and loneliness of this little boy, and it's not like they form like some sort of like beautiful relationship or anything like that, but they connect in this way where he's like the one that can understand this and like go into it. And I love how it resolves where he finds out that the everything that happened to the little boy and how the actual changeling happens, because it's not like how you normally would think of like the changeling lore, where it's like, a little like a little kid or even a person, sometimes like an adult person has been, replaced by like an other, like some sort of like fairy or human or anything like that. But instead, this is just a legit ghost story where the changeling is that a young boy was killed, and his like inheritance was collected by a different boy.
person. Yeah.
And that boy grew up to be like a very rich, successful person, but inherited everything, like, former president, you might say.
Yeah.
Although,
and also the fact that he's also a senator too makes it very interesting as well.
yeah, and I would say, although I feel like this person who inherited everything ends up being a good person at the end of the day. I can't say that for every single person, because like he pushes back at first, but then the connection that he has with his changeling other, the boy who died, he goes into the house and like walks up the stairs to like write things. And I love how George C. Scott doesn't go and like yell at this guy and like kill him or anything like that. He just goes, "Look, I'm sorry I had to break this to you, but here's all the stuff I found. It's up to you to figure this out. There's no, copies of this tape, so you can do whatever you want. You can destroy it, or you can do the right thing."
Which was a great thing to do, because that when the senator gets upset, not that he's hiding something, is that he legit doesn't know what his father did, and he thought his father was a good man. And then slowly he listens to the tape and realizes what type of man his father really was, which then leads to the ending, which I absolutely love that.
Yeah, it's like a brilliant, like, effects ending with the place like catching on fire and stuff. The wheelchair stuff was a little cheesy, but honestly, like just like the camera zooming through the halls and stuff, and I'm always expecting it to like, and it didn't do this, which I like that it didn't do this, because I'm always expecting, because I've seen modern horror movies, like ghost movies, expecting it to fly around and then pop on like a jump scare of a little boy standing there like, help, or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do that. It just, the house is haunted, and yet you don't see the ghost that much. It's more of it kind of like the same thing as in Poltergeist, where you don't really see ghosts. You just like see the effects of, it's more so like the house itself is scared and acting out and angry and malevolent and just like an embodiment of pain inside of the house. And I don't know, I just thought that this
it's the live action version of Monster House.
Yeah, pretty much. I really liked the story of this. I like George C. Scott's performance.
His performance was great.
Yeah, and I just thought it was just like really incredibly done. All the, I don't know if like a lot of the, like Joe Bob Briggs was talking about, like I don't know if like a lot of this backstory that they bring in was not really necessary. Like they talk about like the little girl in the coal cart and a lot of stuff like that. That's, you're like, wait, what? That's not necessary.
Yeah, that one doesn't really go anywhere either.
Yeah. But regardless, even though it has a little bit too much and is a little too detailed sometimes, I still think this is a pretty great one. I'd say this is one of the best ones I've watched in the slate so far. So I really dug it. So we can move on, and we will move on to deadlines. Speaking of, Carrie's got lots of deadlines all the time. In her job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The perfect person to start with this.
Yep.
This was one of my picks actually, and I had heard about it from a podcast they listened to. I can't remember which iteration of it. It's the same, a few of the same people. Either Shockwaves or Colors of the Dark. But they had talked about this movie, and I thought it sounded really interesting. And it's about I think the parallel is Stephen King. It's about an author who he writes horror novels. He also writes his own screenplays, and he's like very involved in the process of making the movies. that are based on his books and his screenplays. So he is under a deadline to get in a new script. We see he's having a lot of troubles in his life. He has cheated on his wife. His wife maybe has a drug problem. He's getting a lot of push at work to get his deadlines in. He's fighting with like the actress on his movie. And in between like the normal real life stuff are like just scenes of really horrific things. And you realize it's either like a scene he's writing or a scene from one of his books or movies. And they're just like interspersed throughout the movie. So it makes it so interesting. And then I guess like this whole thing is spoilers. I mean, I'm curious to hear what you guys thought of the end, because to me it was very ambiguous, because you have this kind of like bending of a lot of the scenes that depict things that happen in his movies and stuff. Like the stand-ins are people from his real life, like his real children and his real wife. And then things start happening in his real life that are really horrific. But I think by the end, you're kind of wondering, wait, was it all in his mind and part of his writing process? Did all this stuff really happen? I don't know. Me, it was a little ambiguous. Maybe it wasn't to you guys, so I'm curious to hear what you thought. I actually, surprisingly, I liked this one. I thought parts of it were a little difficult to watch. Definitely not the best of this year, I don't think, but I don't think it was the worst either. Or this decade.
Right. Yeah, and Carrie's right. We're doing we forgot to say at the top, a blanket spoiler warning. I think we pretty much already spoiled the Changeling. So, you know, there you go. But I didn't hate this one. I didn't love it either. I was kind of in the middle, but I think I teetered towards. I have questions, but I'm teetering towards maybe like a little bit of dislike. Sorry for the sing song in the background. And the reason is because, like, I told Carrie that I was liking it when I was watching it, because I was on like the first half of it, and then later on, I was like, as it went on, I was like, do I like this? I think it's because it starts with like the question of and when he's in the college class, and he's like, they show like a scene from one of his movies, and you know, they're like, you know, he made this brilliant sequence, look at it, and all the kids are basically like every, like, you know, Rotten Tomatoes critic, right, where they're like isn't this like bad for society, and aren't you like, you know, shouldn't you be doing something else, like this is like not good. And he's like sitting there on the defense and stuff, and then I'm wondering, like, is this movie going to go down a road where it like defends horror, or is it like against horror? Like, I wasn't sure. And it feels like it's sort of like Michael Haneke's Funny Games, where it's kind of against horror, even though it's showing like her very horrific scenes. Like, it's both good at doing horror and also like against it. Like, I feel like the whole messaging was that horror movies and just, you know, are it's like horror fiction can influence horror reality, and that horror reality and fiction are like the same thing. And so horror equals horror movies are bad. I don't know if that's like what you guys were thinking about it, but, you know, that's kind of what I was getting for it. And I was like, I don't know if I love the messaging of this movie. That being said, like, I really like the original Funny Games, which is also kind of like negative about horror movies and horror fandom a lot of the times, but I think it says it in like a really interesting way. And here, I think it also does, but just maybe not in like the best way, if that makes sense. And like, it's hard to explain this sometimes without, like, you know, talking about other movies I've seen, but like for the over on the Dill Pickle Movie Network, I do a show called Picture This, where you know, we are on a mission to see every Best Picture nominee known to man, and we watched one called Rachel, which is like a sort of not coming of age, like she's older, but she's trying to like figure out her life. And the reason I bring this movie up is because it has like little scenes that happen that seem to be coming from inside Rachel's mind, that she wants to do something, but she's so reserved, and yet she sees herself doing something that she probably would never do in real life. So it's her imagination you're seeing like playing out. And it doesn't really tell you it's going to do that. It just does it. And you're like, wait, what just happened? And I feel like that's exactly what's happening in this movie, where you'll see a scene, like the scene I thought was kind of funny, actually, with the kids basically killing their grandma by setting her on fire. What the hell? It kind of feels like a bit of a Terrifier kind of thing. Like, what? Where did that even come from? And they're like kind of laughing about it and walking away, and you're like, those kids are crazy as hell. And so I do think it is a little bit confusing when that stuff happens, but then you start to kind of understand that this is part of his like writing process, and I thought that was kind of cool, but I was just like really not sure about what this messaging was trying to say. But yeah, I think it was like really artistically done. I think the ending, as Kara was talking about, is like very weird. It also has a very harrowing thing that happens like really, is that his daughter dies because they're mimicking his movie.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like goes back to the whole, Marilyn Manson, is causing kids to do bad stuff, and like Leonard or Led Zeppelin's, or no, AC/DC's. But who is it? Like
Metallica?
one of the maybe it's Metallica. It was like one of the artists.
Yeah, it's the old like rock and roll is the devil's music type thing.
That, and it's like if you listen to the thing or you play it backwards, it's telling kids to do evil.
Yeah, like the Beatles one where it's like if you play the song backwards, it says that that John Lennon is actually alive or something like that.
Yeah, and and stuff. So I just don't like the whole conspiracy theory type of stuff, but also like the idea of how does media affect real life? And I think that can be interestingly explored, but like here, I think it might be like too negative, where I'm like, that's horror movies aren't causing people to harm other people. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that like no horror movie has ever not done that, but that would be someone who needs like help, and that's not a horror movie causing a bunch of people to go out and do a bunch of stuff. So yeah, I don't know, I'm confused about the messaging, but let Hunter talk about it for a little bit.
So this one is the one that's like I've been changing on my list of like where I want to put it, because I actually really liked this movie. I liked the messaging of like what is real versus what is movies, and what is, when you're a horror writer, can you get out of that horror space, or are you stuck continuously doing the same thing in the same genre? Because there's scenes in there where, the main guy, the writer, he wants to go away from the horror genre, but that brings him in the money, so now he has to keep doing the same thing. And it's like, after a while, can you, like, the money is there, but can you be, I guess, creatively satisfied in doing horror for the rest of your life, if that's something that is making you money? I love that they brought in the idea of movies and how they tie into real life, because that is a thing that has been around forever, since horror movies have been a thing, where it's like horror is causing, rebellious actions, and we know that's not real. It's the same thing with video game, violent video games and music. There's always got to be a scapegoat that people want to put on it. And I think that's the great thing is, I don't think this movie really picks a side. I mean, it has the media talking about like, oh, your writing caused this, but there's also moments of like him pushing back on it, where it's like, no, like I don't control what other people do. Like, I write this as fantasy. Like, it's not supposed to be taken seriously. So I like that it kind of balances that line of, not blaming the movies, but also, not completely, not putting the blame on all the movies, but also not completely obliterating them as well, which I like. The acting, I think, is really good, but also like there are moments in there where I'm kind of confused about what is going on. So that's why I'm saying it's not the best. It's not one of my favorites, but I'm somewhere in the middle on it because I do like that they keep intercutting stuff from his books and his movies, because now you start to question what is real and what is not. Like Carrie brought up, is the ending real? Did he, actually pull the trigger, or is that something that he's, fantasizing about putting in his next book because he is typing it up on the typewriter? I like when movies can end with this kind of ambiguous ending of like, it could be either or. So it's not my favorite, but I would definitely put it somewhere in the middle.
You can't blame the movies, Hunter. Movies can create psychos. Yep. Movies make psychos more creative. No, I think you're right. I think ultimately this movie's very interesting. And whether you like what it has to say or not, I think it says it in a very interesting way. I know interesting's not like the best word to use probably, because it's like feels very bland. Like, oh, it's interesting.
Well, I mean, it is like it's trying to say something, but I don't know if it says it in the correct way or not.
Yeah. So it's one that like you kind of got to think about, which I think adds to the watch of it. Maybe watching it a second time will aid in being like, oh, okay, I actually see what this is saying now, or I have a different opinion on it. That can always happen with movies like this.
It reminds me of Hereditary. The first time you watch Hereditary, you're not sure what's going on. On a rewatch, you realize you start seeing more stuff in the middle of the movie that kind of completes the story.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, for sure. And then I will say one of the creepiest shots of all time is when he's like sitting on the ground. It's very quick, sitting on the ground, and his daughter just hanging, just like comes into frame like, real quick, and you're like, what the hell? And it's just like the way they like play with like the background and foreground, and it's just a very effective kind of like jump scare there, and also very scary and sad, because he's haunted by this what happened to his daughter, which I could never even imagine something like that happening to one of my kids. So I only have one now, but if I have more later, one of my kids. But because like the idea is like three of them get together and like they all play a game, but it's a game they don't understand, and they saw it in one of Daddy's movies, and I could never imagine being a filmmaker and like something like that happened. But that being said, this was definitely an interesting one. Carrie started with that one, so now we will go to the next one, which is Inferno. Wait, am I starting with this one?
Yeah.
Yes,
that's right. I am actually trying to figure out, is this the third movie in the series? No, this is the sequel to Suspiria. So this is
it really?
Yeah, this is Dario Argento's Inferno. If you watch this just as a solo movie and didn't know that, that's kind of funny, because I almost did that, and then Carrie reminded me, wait, this is part of like the Dario Argento's like Suspiria trilogy. And I was like,
I didn't realize there was a Suspiria trilogy. So
yeah. So like, how like this movie like comes in and it starts by with some exposition. It's talking about the mother. There's three of them, and then like one of them is in the house in Suspiria or whatever, I guess.
That's interesting.
Ultimately, this movie, I feel like, is very style over substance.
I feel the same.
But I feel like that is a lot of Argento movies, although he can have substance. Because we've seen it. I mean, in Deep Red, there's a lot of really great stuff, like really great mystery and stuff. This one, like, sort of has an interesting mystery, because it is like, what is this killer doing and stuff like that. And it's scary. There's like really cool sequences of like, colors and music, and how Argento and like just Giallo filmmakers are with like music and stuff. And I love how they like incorporate like rock music a lot of the times. and just like these long sequences of like, you know, women running to like rock music and they're being hunted by someone and stuff like that. Not saying that I like to see women get chased, but you know, honestly, I guess we all do because we're horror fans.
That's the horror genre in a nutshell. So,
but I do think some of the sequences are really cool. I was getting a little confused at times about like who even the main character was, because it kind of was shifting a lot of the times. It felt like, and then you had, but like you had like a really cool like sequence in the beginning with the woman who like explores like the basement of the house she's in, and then like, you know, there's like a body under there. She's trying to fetch something. It felt very like Jaws like. It's like you're underwater and there's like a body that just pops out of nowhere. Yeah, honestly, I just watched this like the other day, and I don't remember that much about it because it's just so fleeting. It just feels like a lot of slasher sequences that happen, and it, you know, there is a like some sort of story about like the mothers, and like you see one at the very end, and so it feels like kind of like a video game with levels, and like
the end skeleton is so funny when she's like, and they call me Death, and the skeleton like comes flying in.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, so there's some like funny stuff and like fun sequences in it. But like it just feels like a movie that's made just to do more of that stuff that you're used to in genre movies. And you know, I wish there was more in it that I could have grasped onto as far as like a theme, or you know, just really anything, or just, you know, I feel like, because like this isn't the only like slasher movie in like the series, but it's like I feel like there's another one we're going to talk about soon, maybe even next, that's a little bit better than this, as far as like how it does its slasher stuff and tells a story and like gives a mystery. And I think that's why like stuff like Deep Red and Suspiria are so interesting, is because they actually have like a really good like mystery at the core, and the reveal.
Yeah, like in Suspiria, it starts off with the death of the girl, and you realize, and you're automatically trying to come up with explanations of what is going on.
Yeah.
And then that follows from the beginning to the middle to the end, where it ramps up, you know, possible, it's like a slasher, possible red herrings about what could be going on. And then it ties it in with the reveal at the end.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we just get like more in other Argento movies. And I feel like this is just kind of the same thing as Suspiria, but not as good. And yet still in some ways like interesting and fun to watch. Like I had a good time with a lot of it, but you know, ultimately not one of the better ones of the slate. Carrie, did you want to talk about this one next? Oh yeah, it's your turn next, and then good, Hunter.
Yeah, so this one I just watched. Argento does a really good job at using color in his movies, which I appreciate. Like really, really like light greens and dark reds, and using the color to emphasize what is going on. Dark red means that, you know, something violent is coming up. Green usually means safety, but can also mean something like, you know, like a running sequence, and he uses green as this kind of a go light, which I appreciate.
What is
I do agree. It is deep red, yes. I do agree that this movie is more style over substance. I didn't realize that this was part of the Suspiria trilogy. But now that I'm thinking about the movie again, I could definitely see how it ties into Suspiria. I agree that it's not as good as Suspiria, and I think I prefer Deep Red and Suspiria more than this one. Yeah, I couldn't get into this one because I wasn't sure who the main character was, because there felt like there was 4 different main stories that they were trying to tell. And when you do that, it makes it hard for me to latch onto your movie because I don't know who I'm following. And yeah, that's my main problem with this movie, is that it tries to do 4 different main characters instead of focusing on one main character all the way through the movie. And I think that's where you lose me a little bit with a disconnect. And like if they had one central main character, I probably would have liked this more. This was actually lower on my list, like, you know, higher up on my list as, or I don't know how to put that, but yeah, it's lower on my list of the ones I've watched.
And the fact that it's like a kind of a later Argento, a little bit, like it feels kind of like, yeah, I've been there, done that with other movies. Whereas like when we get to like something like Demons, like that's still like an interesting new thing. This one might not be. But Carrie, did you like this one more than we did?
No. I think you guys hit the nail on the head. Yeah, this one, the plot is like there is a plot there, but it's very loose and it kind of just falls apart in the end. And thematically, I don't really know what the theme is really going for. Like I can guess, like because the movie's called Inferno, but yeah, I thought you guys. I agree with what you guys said about this one.
Yeah, it's really hard to find a plot in this movie when they're trying to do 4 different stories in one.
Yeah, I didn't even mind. I wouldn't have minded that if things kind of flowed a bit more logically, or like there was like a payoff at the end. But yeah, it just seemed like a really like kind of a jumble of different scenes, almost like loosely connected by a plot.
Which, like, another weird thing is I heard that this was an Argento movie, and I was expecting it to be an Italian horror film. It's not. It's an American horror film, which kind of surprised me because I always thought that Argento did more Italian language horror. I wonder if the one I watched was maybe a dub. Or
well, a lot of times his movies would be filmed in English. Like I think Phenomenal.
Oh, really?
Filmed in English, yeah, because Jennifer Connelly speaks English through the whole thing. And...
It's an Italian film, but the language of it is English.
Yeah.
But I think it says. Oh wait, never mind. Oh no, I think it says languages English, Latin, and Italian. So it might have like.
Well, yeah, and sometimes they do. You can tell in his movies, like the words don't.
The dubbing is off.
Yeah.
And you might also have like some people speaking native Italian and they're dubbed.
Yes,
and then other people are actually speaking in English.
So
that's the case.
The one I probably watched, because I watched the one on Tubi. I think that one is just an English dub, and I didn't notice the.
I think a lot of times they are speaking English, like it's filmed in English, or some characters are speaking English, and some actors were filmed speaking Italian, and then it's dubbed over later, and it's released as an entirely English movie.
Yeah. All right, are you ready to move on to the next movie?
All right. Yep. We'll move on to. I love you guys.
There's more than one way to lose your heart. Love that tagline.
And we're starting with Hunter on this one.
Yeah, this is the one I picked. It's been a while since I've seen this movie. I rewatched it recently. Yeah, it still holds up as a really classic slasher movie. Takes place in the mines, and you get this really cool, like, this mystery of like who is the miner character. And, like, what is his backstory? Like, how did he become this killer? And the ending taking place in the mine shaft itself is a really cool location. I think the acting is okay. It's 80s slasher acting, so I didn't expect it to be that good, but it's not bad. The directing is really good. The gore is incredible. I really enjoyed this one for what it was.
This was a first-time watch for us. I had known the ending of the remake, and I thought it was. I haven't seen the remake, but I know the ending of it, and so I thought it was going to be the same. But it is really a completely. They use like elements in the remake, but it is really a completely different movie. So it was actually like a nice little surprise, like how the plot developed and the things that happened. I really liked this one. I thought it was really fun, and spoiler for the ending, obviously. But I thought it was so funny that the whole time, like, the killer is the like that one guy Axel. And then at the end, the cops are like, "Oh yeah, his dad was killed on Valentine's Day
Yeah.
by Harry Warden," and you're like, "Great."
Well,
Got it.
It's really funny though, like how
Yeah.
like they set it up and like no one mentions it the whole movie, and the cops are like,
Oh,
"Oh,
yeah."
I feel like that's right. That makes so much sense.
They show the scene and then it like pans down. They show the scene first
Yeah.
in the beginning. They show it later when you know who it is, and then it pans down to the kid under the bed.
Yeah.
Kind of basically like Juke from Nope.
Yeah.
I thought it was really I thought that was really fun. Like it was for me just a really fun schlocky horror movie, like a nice little mystery. I can definitely see why this is kind of like a classic slasher.
On to me, yeah, I really like this one. I think this one was just such a great slasher, and I didn't know like too much about it. I've never seen the remake. I knew it was a remake, but I didn't like know anything about it. All I knew it had to do something with a minor, and
that's actually a really good thing if you didn't know anything going into it.
Yeah,
because the remake does give a little bit away about who the killer could be. That is tied into this one a little bit, but if you didn't watch the remake and didn't know, this one is actually a lot better than.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that I didn't watch the remake because I mean, I don't think it's supposed to be very good, but like Carrie and I were even talking, and she got to like witness me kind of like not realizing, because the whole like most of the time I thought it was Harry Warden was doing everything, and then like I started to kind of question like, wait, could this be like a whodunit, like like someone else is in that costume and it's not Harry at all? And I started to realize that when they were in the mine and it was like 4 of them trying to escape, they were climbing the ladder, and it was like I was sitting there, I was like, it's been a while since we've seen that minor character that's like villain. I was like, it has to be like one of those 2 guys now. And at first I thought it was going to be it's hard to explain, not Axel and the other
Not Axel, yeah, the other guy, yep.
Because he seemed like the nicer of the 2, even though they were both like doing the same thing, like fighting over this girl, and it was good. It was fun to see their whole tensions like throughout, and then later on, I love when like everyone's panicking, and then they're like, we got to put our differences aside and just like team up and like save the day.
I will say that's the good thing about. Sorry for interrupting you.
Yeah.
The good thing on this movie is that the characters, for the time they were written, aren't written as stupid as some horror characters are.
Well, not all of them. Some of them.
Yeah, some of them are, but not all of them, which I appreciate.
I was just to finish before is that would they have to team up to save them? Little did they know that one of those 2 is the actual killer, which I think would make it a fun watch to go back and see, kind of like if you don't know who the killer or killers are in Scream, you go back and watch that, or just really any slasher where the killer is revealed later. I think it's such a fun thing. But yeah, you also hit on that the characters don't make poor decisions for the most part, except for like the one guy who's trying to like fool everyone, like all the kids. And he's got like the little dummy that keeps poking out when he opens the door. He just loves his craftsmanship so much that he keeps like peeking in the door and going like, this is so great. Close the door, peeking in, and then you're like, all right, on the 4th or 5th time, that villain's gonna come out and stab him or something. Like he goes to walk away, and then he goes, I gotta look at this shit again. This is great. Kind of a deal.
Yep, and the killer's there. Yep.
It's amazing, and also just a very dumb thing. Like, dude, you're not 5. You just walk away. But yeah, I thought that was pretty great. I think a lot of the kills are great, but the main thing that I love about this, not only do the characters like smart and like everything's like very well written. Is that I love how this takes death seriously. Because a lot of slashers don't, like, people die and you might have people go like, oh my God, and run away. But here, people get traumatized.
Yep.
And people are like just scared to death, and they just know they lost part of themselves when they see their significant other basically getting strung up in a shower and like basically like turned into a part of a shower, whatever the hell that body that you don't see, which I thought was kind of cool. That like some of them you don't see, some of them you do, and you don't really need to see some of them because you just saw the shock on that guy's face, and then
your imagination can be worse than what they show you.
Yeah, and you know that like they're
traumatized.
He's not going to be the same the rest of his life, and
even though it also helps that we get a little bit of time with all the characters early on. That way, when they do start going into the mine and get picked off, you feel bad for the group of characters. It's not like a Friday movie where you just these characters aren't unlikable, so you want to see them killed. Like these characters actually have arcs and storylines and relationships that develop early on. Then you start feeling bad when they have to see their significant others die.
Yeah, honestly, like I feel like you could have had like this is not as good as like Scream is, not as well written, but Scream was kind of like one of the first like horror franchises where the characters were characters and they actually were like so well written that that's who you follow throughout like each installment is these core cast of characters. And I feel like My Bloody Valentine had characters that were so well written and interesting that if they hadn't killed all of them, well, they didn't. They had like a couple still left alive at the end. You could have like continued that story. Now I don't, because like the main focus was on like this minor character that maybe you couldn't like. How would you have them then go to college, like in Scream and My Bloody Valentine 2, and have like a copycat minor killer? Like you would probably be
that was the problem with the remake, is that the remake had it be the son of the killer in the original movie.
Okay,
and because that's who Jensen Ackles' character is. He's revealed to be the killer.
Okay,
spoiler for that one.
Right.
The problem with that though is that it just feels cliche to do. The son of the original killer is back for revenge, and it was like 25 years after, because it came out in 2009. So
what you could have did in a sequel to this is like because you see the guy who got killed by Harry Warden is Axel's dad, and then you see it pan down to Axel like terrified and oh my god, and so traumatized, and then he becomes the killer. You could have had that guy whose girlfriend gets turned into a shower. He could have been the killer in the sequel.
Yes.
So I don't know. That might have
that could have worked.
I like how it does play into trauma and stuff like that. It kind of like goes into like what we discussed in what was it two? Yeah, it was 2 episodes ago when we talked about Peeping Tom and how trauma plays into not everyone who's traumatized has become a killer or anything like that, but like how hurt people kind of a deal. And I don't know, I did think it was a little corny when they stopped him, Axel, and then they went back in. They're like, he's alive, and then like you see like the limb, but then you see Axel like running away, going like, how like be my Valentine, be my Bloody Valentine, or whatever, and running away like giggling. I was like, oh, that's kind of silly, but ultimately, I think like everything was well set up in this town. I think just like the imagery of the villain in like the minor costume is just kind of cool and iconic.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I really like this one as a standalone like slasher movie, and yeah, I dug this one quite a bit. I did not think I was gonna like it as much as I did, but I did. So
yeah. So as I said, I watched this one time and then I rewatched it for this one. I liked it more on a second watch as well. So I remember liking it as a standalone slasher, but on the second time when you know who the killer is, you start seeing more of like how Axel is acting.
yeah, that's why I want to rewatch
and
this.
You're like, oh, there's something up. He's being too nice in this one scene. There's something up with him.
Yeah, and the murders are like brutal, and so
yeah,
this is a very good one. But yeah, we should move on to the next one, which is, and has nothing to do with the original movie, but it is Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night II. And and Carrie's starting with this one, right?
Yeah.
All right.
This is another one we watched with the Joe Bob's last drive-in.
Again, that sounds so much fun.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, like Chad said, this really is.
I was just gonna say it is a great one, especially because they have an impromptu prom.
Yeah,
in it.
They have a prom in it.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, in the Joe Bob thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this one. It's about prom night in like 1957. Right. Takes place. This one woman who's a student, she is dating one guy and she kind of cheats on him with another guy. The guy she cheated on gets mad and throws like a stink bomb at her as she's about to get crowned prom queen, and like the whole stage goes up in flames. She's burned alive. And then like in the 80s, like 30 years later, another student like finds her prom dress, and then Mary Lou basically possesses her and causes all this chaos and murder. And it was a really fun movie. I thought it was going to be really bad, but it was actually really fun. The like death sequences kind of reminded me a little bit of some of the Final Destination death sequences. Like overall, just like a cool concept. There's a lot in it. They kind of like throw everything in this.
Yep.
But it's a fun kind of like supernatural kind of slasher. It's definitely more like supernatural, though there's like zombies. Like, it's a really fun movie. I think like a cool concept. So I thought this one was pretty fun.
Yeah, this one's definitely fun. I like when they have movies like this where it's like it's a sequel, but it's not a sequel, but it's like titled as a sequel. It's almost like Ouija Origin of Evil, Mike Flanagan's movie. It has nothing to do with the original Ouija, and it's just like the studio like wanted to like I guess capitalize off of the name. It's like, well, this one also has a prom, so why not call it Prom Night II?
That's literally what happened, because this was not originally going to be a sequel to Prom Night. It was a movie called The Haunting at Hamilton High, I believe, is the original title. Right, And then they saw that movie wouldn't sell, so they added the Prom Night 2 because Prom Night was a huge success.
Marketing. Yeah, I would have liked it just to be called Hello Mary Lou, but I think Hello Mary Lou Prom Night 2 were like rhymes. It's kind of fun. And it's just weird, and you're just like, oh. So if you didn't love the original Prom Night, you can go, no, this one might be better. Yeah, and I really like this one as well. I think the opening is really is really cool. Like, you know, Carrie was talking about, like there's drama, there's Mary Lou's like cheating, and stuff, and so jealous, scorned boyfriend ends up just trying to like ruin her prom queen moment, but ends up killing her and and he's like, oh no.
It is funny, the similarities between this opening and like the ending of Carrie.
Yeah.
Even down to like the guy being on the scaffold building. and then something happens that ends up with him killing somebody.
Yeah, and it's cool that like that guy ends up being a young Michael Ironside.
Yes,
which is a big character actor. And it's one of his like earlier roles. It feels like, and it was like Joe Bob was talking about like how it doesn't make a lot of sense because he's too young to have been the older version. Like what 50 years later than
that's true.
High school kid. But it doesn't really make sense. It's still. I mean, it doesn't really matter that much. Is because it's I feel like it's still a well-written movie. And I like how this is just a scorned woman because she cheated in high school, but that doesn't mark you for death. And so when it does, apparently she basically becomes like a demon, and anybody who disrespects her crown gets killed. And then she ends up, possessing one of the students. And I just think like everything that comes with it is just like really cool. You get like, I got like, a lot of the faculty vibes as well as like Carrie and stuff. And I liked, because you have like body possessed stuff and whatnot. And I liked the main character's love interest is another actor that's been in a lot of stuff. He was in like Breaking Bad and stuff like that. So if you see his face when he's older, you'll know like, oh, he's been in some stuff. So that was kind of cool. But it's also like cool that like mostly like no name people kind of a deal, like people who didn't get super famous and stuff. So I like the style of this. I like a lot of the kills. I like the the possessed horse is really creepy. When the main character gets shot and then like Mary Lou like takes her over or something, it's very confusing, but it's such a cool sequence and you're like, holy shit.
The practical effects are really good too.
Yeah. And I just love like the idea of like it doesn't make sense that they would have like kept Mary Lou's possessions in the basement like that, but for 50 years, but it still makes like a cool setup for every time they disrespect the thing, the stuff would shake, the briefcase would shake or suitcase, and just a very cool like demon effects and like the end of the movie, spoiler alert, is that it's just basically that it's not over when you thought everything was over. It's another very Carrie kind of
ending,
and kind of like something that could have set up a sequel, another sequel, even though Prom Night 3 has nothing to do with this one. And Joe Bob also said, "Don't watch Prom Night 3." He said, "Yeah, don't watch that one."
That's fair.
But it kind of sequel baits from this one, but then they probably couldn't have gotten like Michael Ironside to return because he's a pretty big actor. Yet I just think that this one is really fun at the end of the day. So I really dug it. Hunter, what do you think?
Yeah, I had fun with this one. I did not expect to like this one. I was like, I didn't really like Prom Night. I don't know what this one is going to be about. So I went into it skeptical, and I had fun with it. I do like that the person that Mary Lou cheats on Michael Ironside's character with, like during the prom scene, grows up to be the priest in this movie. So like they're like working together on like trying to figure out like, is she back or whatever. I think,
and that's kind of like I Know What You Did Last Summer kind of a deal. Like, it's back, or it, or something like that. Like, she's back.
She's back. I love I love the woman who plays Mary Lou. I think she did great as like, especially early on. She is this kind of queen bee type character where she's like, the popular girl and things like that. Definitely getting some vibes, like, again, of Carrie, where, the way she dies. I do find it funny that he just tries to throw a stink bomb, but somehow that, like, lights her dress on fire. I don't know how that's possible, but that's hilarious. There's also a line that calls back to the original one, which is, it's when Mary Lou says, "It's not who you come with, it's who takes you home." That was said in the original one, and then it's also said in the sequels as well. So that's like a running line that every one of the main characters says. The ending I thought was kind of interesting because, like, Michael Ironside's character has to go back up on the scaffolding where his, he killed Mary Lou the first time, and then he has to shoot the main girl. I also got a lot of, like, maybe it's like a Jennifer's Body or a Freaky style, where it's like the nice girl is getting possessed, so now she starts slowly changing into Mary Lou, or getting more confidence, where it's like, early on she wouldn't have said the stuff that she says later on, which is like, watch your fucking mouth, bitch. And then that's where you start seeing that Mary Lou is slowly possessing her. And then she even has a side eye where she sees the principal walk by and she goes, "Bill." Like, she knows who that is now, and she knows what happened because Mary Lou is slowly starting to get into her mind like that. So I love that there's these little slow, like, breadcrumbs of, like, slowly seeing her change from, like, this good girl to slowly getting more and more and more possessed. It's not just a one and done quick thing.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Something I forgot to bring up, but yeah, that definitely works very well in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to quickly shout out because you talked about the two actresses, Mary Lou, Lisa Schrage, and then you have Vicky Carpenter, like the one who gets possessed, played by Wendy Lyon.
Yeah,
and I think they're both incredible in the movie, and
mm-hmm.
and yeah, I like how. Michael Ironside's character basically has to, like, make amends and give her prom moment. Damn it!
Yeah,
I think that's because that's kind of all she wanted. She wanted to be prom queen. She didn't want to die, but she also wanted to be prom queen and have her moment.
The computer death was awesome too, where she's like, "Make it to where I become prom queen," and then, like, the possessed Mary Lou is like, "Nope," and, like, fries the dude's brain through the computer. Like, the effects look so bad, but man, that was a fun death scene.
Yeah, I like a lot of the older, like, 80s style lightning effects are really fun sometimes. Home Alone 2 has that, even though it's not an 80s movie.
I also watched the kill count for this one as well in preparation. And apparently James brought up that there's a lot of references to horror directors in this one. So you have Vicky Carpenter for John Carpenter. You have Jess Browning, Todd Browning. You've got Mr. Craven, of course, Wes Craven. And then you have Monica Waters, which is in reference to John Waters.
Yeah, I like when horror movies do that.
Yeah, so just an interesting fact.
So we can move on to the final one, which I think many people are probably very, like, familiar with, and we've already covered it on this channel very recently.
Yeah,
we're talking, of course, of Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice.
Oh, you didn't say 3 times.
Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
So
I believe it's on you, Chad.
Me.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm starting. All right. We've covered this recently, like I said. We did a whole episode, whole review in preparation for Beetlejuice. And we haven't reviewed that on the channel yet, but I think it's going to be streaming soon. We'll watch it. Even though I've seen it already, we'll watch it and probably cover it. But the original is a classic. I wanted to rewatch it again for this, but I didn't really get to do it. However, it's one that I just have seen so many times in my childhood. I think it's incredible. I like it a lot. Like, I don't think the story is, like, that flushed out, but, like, as we've discussed in our episode, like, a lot of the times it doesn't really need to be. Like, sometimes we get enough, like, enough setup for the deaths, of the main couple before the
Mhm.
decent move in. We get to see the, I guess you can say like the invading family of, but the invading socialites, like the
Yep.
ones that are like city, like, artsy people invading the nice
Catherine
country.
O'Hara just cracks me up every
Um,
time in this freaking
she's
movie. I swear to God.
incredible. She's incredible. We don't talk about, I think his name's Jeffrey Jones.
Mhm.
We don't really talk about him anymore for reasons. But then also, yeah, you have oh my God,
Renata Ryder.
Winona Ryder. I had it right there. We have her, and then of course the incomparable Michael Keaton,
Mhm.
who crushes it, and Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis, who I missed from the sequel. I wish they had been in there. Of course,
Yeah.
Alec Baldwin's dealing with things,
Mhm.
but as well real life stuff. But enough about the sequel. The original movie I think is incredible. I love the iconography of it.
Mhm.
I think Beetlejuice is just a really fun like character that's basically what if Linda Blair's Reagan exorcist was a funny adult male guy who is just crazy and just
Yeah.
runs around going like, I can help you do stuff. Calling
Bio Exorcist
all,
himself.
yeah, the bioexorcist, yeah. It's basically like a telemarketer salesman, like, come,
Yes.
he's trying to like make amends, or I don't know what the hell he's doing, but it's fun how like the rules of him, coming out, how they,
Mhm.
have the Great Beyond and the book that you have to follow with all the rules, and they got like the fun like waiting room with all the people who died, and they're just sitting there like with how they died. So it seems like the afterlife might suck depending on like if you died in a very horrific way,
Mhm.
or if you could just look normal. But apparently you can change your face and haunt stuff, so that's kind of cool, I guess. But the idea of like having to like kind of defend your house, but then realize you can share it, and
Mhm.
I love how they all come together, especially with Winona Ryder's character being like so close to death. She's like one of those like 80s 90s like goth girls that are just like
Mhm.
going to death, and then she's the one that's able to
Her
see
whole suicide note scene is hilarious. It shouldn't be, but she's like, I'm going to jump. No, I'm going to plummet. She has to find the right words to say.
That's right. She's like what is the writer for Virginia Woolf? Is that the writer
Wolf.
from The Hours?
Mhm.
Yeah, the suicidal woman. So yeah, I
Mhm.
could understand that like being like a writer that's like I need to write this suicide note perfectly. But yeah, like you said, yeah, it shouldn't be funny, but it is, and I like
Yeah.
the dark humor that Tim Burton has, and the dark
Mhm.
style, the dark, the gothic, aesthetics that he has, and just has like his own style that he brings to it, and just makes it really funny. I think Michael Keaton's incredible in that role. And even though like all the humor I don't find funny, but when it hits, I think it really hits. Like
Mhm.
it talks about watching The Exorcist 167 times, and it's funnier every time I see
Every
it.
time.
And and stuff. His head spins around.
Nice fucking sculpture.
Right. But yeah, just it's cool. The sandworms, the practical effects that we discussed before, and just everything. This is one of the best Tim Burton movies, and I think one of the best, most iconic movies of the '80s. Not just
Yep.
horror, but like comedy, horror comedy, all that kind of stuff. So yes. So
I'm sorry. I'm watching Carrie just like play with Ellie, and it's hilarious because she's doing like these faces and stuff to him, and then he's laughing back at her. It's so funny.
yeah, it's this fun time with the little Elliot. But yeah, I really like this one quite a bit. You want more? Check out our episode we did on it.
Mhm.
Hunter, what do you think?
Yeah, this is my favorite Tim Burton movie of all time. It slowly started creeping up to my favorite. This last rewatch though definitely made it my number one. I love how creative it is, how the waiting room and the football team scenes are so funny, where they're like calling the head of the waiting room area, the offices areas, like the football team are calling her coach every single time they come in. I find that hilarious. Michael Keaton steals the show for only being in the movie 15 minutes. And that's because every time he brings this magnetic energy to the role as Beetlejuice that I absolutely love. Winona Ryder is incredible. She was incredible even as I'm guessing she's a teen at this time. She's got to be no more than maybe 16, 17. But she definitely has the acting chops. Captain O'Hara cracks me up every time I watch this movie because I catch new lines that her character says, and I just laugh harder every single time she brings up these lines.
Just real quick, if you love Catherine O'Hara and think she's hilarious, which she is, watch Martin Scorsese's After Hours because she's amazing in that. And then also watch Schitt's Creek, the show, because she's so
I've been meaning to watch that. But yeah, just how creative and like over the top Tim Burton is. This is his peak of I can do what I want, and I'm going to make this entire world more captivating and creative. And he's got the mini sculpture of the town that's in the attic area that I love. I also think that it's a really good love story between Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin's character. You can tell how much their connection, how much they love each other, and I love it. I love the rules. I love, just everything about this movie just keeps getting better on multiple rewatches. And I love the sequel too, because it takes that and it adds more Beetlejuice, and it gives this more of a family connection that you got in the first one. It continues that on to the sequel as well. But yeah, this is one of my favorites of this list, and definitely my favorite Burton film.
Yeah, and I love the end sequence where they're all kind of coming together, and you get to see Lydia Dietz dancing, float dancing to Harry Belafonte. With all the football players and stuff. I just love that scene. It just ends so well. Carrie.
Yeah, this is also my favorite Tim Burton movie. I don't know what else more there is to say about it, but it's amazing. Like, it's one of my favorites. It's in the tippy top of, I think, my overall movies that we've watched for this overall. So.
All right. So if we're done, then we can go ahead and do our rankings of these 1980s movies. And Hunter, do you want to start with your ranking? 6-1.
Yeah. So my number 6 is Inferno. My number 5 is Deadline. My number 4 is My Bloody Valentine. My number 3 is Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night II. My number 2 is The Changeling. And my number 1 is Beetlejuice.
Nice. My number 6 was Deadline. My number 5 was Inferno. My number 4, Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night II. My number 3, My Bloody Valentine. My number 2, Beetlejuice. And my number 1, Changeling.
Nice.
So yeah.
All right. My number 6 was Inferno. My number 5 was Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2. My number 4 was Deadline. I'm all mixed up. My number 3 was My Bloody Valentine. My number 2 was The Changeling, and my number 1 was Beetlejuice.
Nice. So our 2 and 1 are the same.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say wow because I put The Changeling over Beetlejuice? Interesting.
Well, I guess because of how positive we all talked about Beetlejuice, I thought that would be our consensus number 1 as well.
Yeah,
but, I'm totally glad that you love The Changeling as much as you do.
It's one of those things where I adore Beetlejuice as like a iconic movie that I love from like my childhood, but I just think the story in The Changeling is more powerful. So I don't know, it just affected me more, especially after like having a son and stuff like that.
And that's another reason why. It's probably because I don't have any kids, so I like the story, but like I'm not really as affected as someone who isn't a parent.
Yeah.
And this movie is about loss and being a parent, things like that. So I can see why it would resonate more with you guys as well.
But it's one of those things too with like ranking. Like sometimes there's big gaps in rankings, and then sometimes it's like my 1 and 2 are like 1A and 1B. It's so close. But yeah, those are our rankings for the 1980s. A lot of really good ones in this one. I love so many of these, especially my top 3. I really love. So yeah, that's it. We're gonna go on to the 1990s next, into the 2000s, 2010s, 2020s, and then we'll end with our live recording, our live show where we talk about Halloween and Hocus Pocus. And yeah, so check out a lot of our other ones we did. We did the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s before this. Check out all those. Like and subscribe to all the videos in the channel, and because we have a lot of other stuff going on, like our Decades Bracket series we're doing, trying to figure out what's the greatest horror movie of all time. That's a long series that we've been doing for a long time, but we're going to get there, and it's going to be really fun to do our like championship series of that ilk. We did a lot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer talk and stuff like that, so if you love that show, we got Hunter into the show and he loves it. And yeah, a lot of other great reviews and stuff on the channel. Hunter, do you want to go ahead and close it out?
Yeah, so if you guys did enjoy this, please hit that like button, subscribe to Welcome to Primetime, and remember, stay scared.
Just pause right here.
Aww, hi.
Hi. Hi.
Say hi.
He's like, what? Is the TV talking to me?
Hi.
Hi. You can say hi.
Aww.
Yeah.
He's looking at me. Oh, there's that smile.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah. Aww.
What a sweet boy. Oh, you giving him a kiss?
Aw, hey, thank you, buddy.
He's like, he's interacting. This is better than Blippi, dude.
Aw.
Oh, he's so sweet. What, you gonna crawl over there?
Like Samara from The Ring, he's just like come through the screen.
Oh, Hunter's gonna raise our baby now. But I got
You
work.
do not want that.